Well, thank you very much and good evening, everybody.
Good evening!
That's a bit different to Brussels, where, of course, the chairman of the Parliament is in control of the microphone and can cut me off, not amplify me, but there we are. I have spent over 20 years of my life battling for us in this country to have a full, free and fair referendum to decide whether we're part of a political union with Europe or not. And we now have a referendum on whether we remain in the European Union or whether we leave the European Union. And if it hadn't been for us, that would never have happened. And it's the chance of a lifetime, and we must grab it with both hands. Now, the battle lines are fairly clearly drawn. We saw the launch of the Remain campaign from Lord Rose the other day, coming out with a whole series of very tired, out-of-date arguments as to why the EU was a good thing. And let's be frank, for some people, the EU is a good thing. If you are a big multinational business, this is a fantastic institution. It's a way of actually, you as a company, shaping the rules, shaping the laws, making it really difficult for small and medium-sized competitors to get into the marketplace. Oh, and I nearly forgot, it means cheap, imported foreign labour to the detriment of Welsh and Northern Irish and English and Scottish people. So if you're, and there we are. There we are. So I get why big companies, I get why big business, and in many ways I get why big politics likes the European Union. But there's another group of people whose minds on the European Union have been motivated, can I say, by self-interest. Now, I'm thinking particularly about a South Wales family. I have to be slightly careful, because they have launched the odd lawsuit against me, but to hell with it. I'm thinking about that great, principled, South Walian politician, Neil Kinnock. Remember him? That's right. The very same Neil Kinnock who, all through the 1970s and much of the 1980s, made the argument that actually being part of this European club would be bad for working class people, would play into the hands of the giant multinationals, and would destroy our ability as a nation to be a parliamentary democracy. That was the Neil Kinnock of old. But the Neil Kinnock, or should I say, Lord Kinnock, it's not too bad, but he favoured abolishing the House of Lords at one time, is it? But there we are. But Lord Kinnock now, and several other members of his family, have, shall I put it to you, good reason to be supporters of the European project, if you get my drift. So it's about self-interest, it's about money, it's about being able to shape the rules. And what we've got to do in this referendum across the United Kingdom and here in Wales is we've got to challenge an establishment who have benefited personally massively from it. And they will make the arguments that the European Union has been good for Wales. Very good for Wales. Because all over Wales you will see the European Union flag. This project, yeah, I'm sure you've seen it. I can't stand that flag, I don't know about you, but this project has been part funded by the European Union. Yippee! Isn't that marvellous? Wales has been the recipient of European Union money. Isn't that wonderful? Folks, there's no such thing as European money. It's our money. But if they can't convince you with their flag, they'll convince you with another argument. They will tell you that for Wales, membership of the European Union has been good for business and good for jobs and good for ordinary Welsh people. Well, let me tell you, 99% of companies that operate in Wales are small companies, run by men and women who've taken a chance in life and got on and decided to have a go at something. Over 60% of people employed in Wales are employed by those men and women that run those small companies. Has the European Union been good for Wales's small companies? Well, let me give you an example. This afternoon, I went to visit a shop and a factory here in Swansea, run by a guy who decided that the switch that people were making to e-cigarettes from more conventional cigarettes was something that would grow. And he was right, wasn't he? Because sensible people give up cigarettes. All right, some of us are slow to learn, but there we are. Sensible people, I'll come to ginger beer in a moment. And whoever thought I talk about ginger beer on Question Time? But many sensible people have switched, and there are now 2.6 million people in the United Kingdom who've switched from smoking cigarettes to using e-cigarettes. You know, many people in the health profession say these are at least 95% safer. And without doubt, e-cigarettes cause far less inconvenience to others around them. And without doubt, the e-cigarette boom has benefited small businesses, has benefited entrepreneurs that have set up their own companies, set up their own laboratories, provided choice in the marketplace, and actually put a lot more money in the pockets of ordinary people, because probably to smoke e-cigarettes costs you about £3 a week, whereas the conventional alternative is going to be £40 a week or something like that. So you would have thought we should all be celebrating the fact that 2.6 million people in Britain have switched to e-cigarettes, but not the European Commission and not the institutions of Brussels. They have decided that e-cigarettes should be treated and subjected to tests even more rigorous than the tobacco industry. And that little company I visited today here in Swansea have 280 different flavours and types of e-cigarette liquid for sale. Each one of those, to get registered under European Union law, will take a toxicology test that will cost £8,000 for each of their 280 items. Are you getting my drift? Who will the benefits be? Who will the benefits accrue to of the Tobacco Products Directive when it may well close down? Our firm here in Swansea, with its 21 employees, and ironically, hand the e-cigarette trade with limited choice, limited option, and a massively increased cost back to the very tobacco companies from whom it was designed that this product should take market choice away from in the first place. So I put it to you that for your vapor here, your vaping business here in Swansea, and actually for every small business here in Wales, what the European Union does is to give people employment legislation that they can't frankly compete with as a small company, health and safety at work rules that have at times reached frankly ludicrous proportions, and environmental laws that make them and the rest of our industries uncompetitive. So I don't buy the argument that for 99% of Welsh private companies, EU membership has been a good thing. But let me say unequivocally that EU membership has been a disaster in Wales for heavy manufacturing. Something that this part of the world, South Wales in particular, has done well for 150 years and more. Since 2007, when there were 9 active large-scale steel furnaces operating in Wales under the name of Chorus, if you remember, there is now just 1 active large-scale steel producer operating today. And why is this? It's because the European project has a complete obsession with carbon dioxide emissions. They are convinced that carbon dioxide emissions are leading to global warming, and that global warming will threaten the future of mankind. Now, I don't know. I'm not a scientist. I don't know. What I do know is there has been no rise in global temperatures for the last 20 years. But what I do know even more specifically is that because of our belief that we must cut carbon dioxide emissions, we've put into place a series of policies that has been disastrous for engineering. What we have done is to take our carbon emission targets from the European Union to have a massive drive and a massive push for wind energy. And by that I mean onshore wind farms and offshore wind farms. I personally think they are absolutely some of the most disgusting, ugly things I've ever seen on our landscape. But if they were ugly and they worked, I'd say to you tonight, we must live with it. But they're ugly and they don't work, because they produce an intermittent form of energy that doesn't work in the market and has to be subsidised. And whenever you see a wind turbine on land, you know that a rich landowner has just hit the jackpot by being paid simply to have them on his land. Simple as that. And what we have done is we have driven up the cost of electricity at the very same time as the Americans have discovered shale gas and gone for shale gas, and at the very same time that the Indians and the Chinese are building now 4 new coal-fired power stations every single week. So what has happened is that steel production in South Wales and around the rest of the United Kingdom has closed down, has reopened in countries like India that have lower environmental standards and produce more CO2 and everything else, and then those very products that are needed to be consumed and used by other down-the-line industries here then get imported back into South Wales and the rest of the United Kingdom. So what we have done through our obsession of reducing carbon dioxide emissions and by going for this push for wind is we have actually increased carbon dioxide emissions and put out of business tens of thousands of people in steel, in refining. You'll notice that Milford Haven is not as active as it used to be. And we've done the same in the cement industry, we've done the same in the glass industry, and right across heavy manufacturing. Please don't tell me that absolutely everybody in South Wales and the rest of Wales and the United Kingdom can survive working purely in the service industry. I don't believe they can. And if you look at the fishing industry, or should I say in the case of Wales, what is left of the fishing industry, it's wonderful to see this incredible marina here in Swansea, without doubt the best in the United Kingdom. And there are some fantastic yachts in there and some lovely angling boats, which I'm all in favour of. But what you see in that wonderful marina are precious few men working in an industry that in many cases their family had done for hundreds of years. And why? Because as members of the European Club, we've given away over 80% by value of the fish that are caught in our territorial waters. And the argument we must confront the Kinnocks with, and virtually everybody else in Welsh politics apart from UKIP, the argument we must confront them with in this referendum is that far from EU membership being good for Wales, being good for small businesses, being good for big businesses, being good for medium-sized businesses, actually, by saying no to European Union, we can take back control of our own lives and put our own businesses first. this referendum is the opportunity of a lifetime. If you think about it, this referendum is about who governs our nation. You know, time and again we've heard lies over the years. Oh, don't worry, it's just about trade. And I've no doubt there are one or two of you in the room who would have voted for a common market back in 1975. But here we are with over 70% of our laws being made somewhere else. Here we are, as Nathan Gill, my colleague, said earlier, paying a large membership fee for the benefit of doing it. But perhaps one of the consequences of our being part of the European Union that maybe will dominate this referendum more than any other is the consequence of us now having a total open border to nearly 500 million people. You know, look at your passport. The next time you know, look at your passport. Apart from the fact that it's changed colour from what it used to be, what are the first two words on the British passport? It says European Union. And that passport is now held by 485 million people. And any one of them, at any time, has the ability and free access to come to our country. And I say that actually it is a basic function of a state that it should be able to decide who comes to live, work and settle in that country. Now, I said over 10 years ago, when we allowed first 8 and then 10 former communist countries into the European Union, I said there would be a huge migrant tide to Britain, the likes of which had never been seen. And my gosh, wasn't I called all the names under the sun for daring to say such a dreadful thing? What I said has come true, except it's actually been far bigger and far more serious than what I said. It has led to wage compression for people on ordinary salaries, and most people on ordinary wages have now been through 10 years of no rise in their living standards, as we've allowed wages to be driven down to the floor to the benefit of big employers and to the disadvantage of ordinary working men, women and families in this country. It doesn't work. It is not in our interests. And now I begin to hear Theresa May. I even heard Call Me Dave the other day saying that we didn't need unlimited immigration into Britain. Fine, they're now agreeing with my analysis, but they don't propose to lift a finger to do anything about it. Because actually, what this referendum is really about is it's about the Prime Minister's renegotiation of our membership. That is what you're going to vote on. You're going to vote on his renegotiation of the terms of our membership. And let me tell you, we're going to get no significant concessions at all. The one thing we're certainly not going to get is any promise to change the free movement of peoples. And what I predict will happen is that Cameron will come back. They may even reopen Croydon Airport for this, you know. And he will come back, as the Prime Minister did once before. Telling us not to worry, because there's a promise that in the next European treaty in a few years to come, we will get significant concessions. Folks, we don't want, I put it to you, promissory notes from Chancellor Merkel or anybody else in Europe. I put it to you, what we want is a complete change in our relationship with this European political project. Frankly, it is not too strong to say that we have actually been betrayed by our political class, who in the name of telling us it was a trade agreement have given away our birthright, have given away the very thing that those generations that went before us in the 20th century fought and in some cases died to defend. We have given away our country and we want it back. And we want it back because we want a more self-confident nation that believes in it, that believes in itself. I've had enough of these politicians. I saw some of them on Question Time last night. You know, and I've spent a lot of time with them over the course of the last few years. They don't like me any the more for it, but there we are. But I remember last year, in those debates I did with Nick Clegg, those 2 one-hour head-to-head debates I did with Nick Clegg, I remember a moment in that when old Cleggers said, well, you can't even dislike Nick, you know, I mean, I've tried, but it's just not, just not enough personality to dislike, is there really? I mean, let's be honest about it. I mean, talk about the bland leading the bland, but there we are. Now, this is a very serious evening. I'm sorry. I promised Nathan I'd behave. But there was a moment in those debates when old Cleggers was looking ahead to the camera. He said, we have to be inside the EU to stand tall on the world stage. We have more influence in the world if we're part of the EU. We could not negotiate our own trade deals just as the United Kingdom. We have to do it as part of the European Union. And I responded by saying that if Iceland, with a population of 317,000, was capable of negotiating its own trade deal with China, I was damn sure we were big enough and strong enough to negotiate whatever trade deals we thought to be in our own interests. Simple. But then I realised that actually behind what Nick was saying was something more fundamental. And I turned to him and I said, the trouble is, Nick, you just don't think we're good enough, do you? And he winced at that moment. And ladies and gentlemen, that is the point. Whenever you hear a politician telling you, we have more influence in the world as part of this club, we're not big enough or strong enough to stand on their own, what they mean is they don't think we are good enough. Well, I think we're good enough, and I hope you think we're good enough to run our own country. If we say no to this European club, we are not saying no to Europe. We love Europe. We like visiting Europe. We like drinking their wines. We're happy to work for them, marry with them, whatever it may be. All of that's fine. We want to live. It's like living in a street, isn't it? If you live in a street, you want to get on with your next door neighbours. Of course you do. It makes life harmonious. It makes life better. But you don't want to go joint account, do you, with the next door neighbours? And that's what I'm talking about. I want us to have the kind of free trade agreement that my parents' generation thought they were signing up for 40 years ago. We will trade with Europe, we will cooperate with Europe, we will do business with Europe, but we will get back, if we win this referendum and say no to European Union, the ability through our own democracy to govern our own nations. We will, with that, I believe, get back our self-confidence, our self-respect in who we are as a people. And we will, once we've done that, be able to open ourselves up to the rest of the world who we've turned our backs on, quite frankly. And there is an obvious place to start. We should relink with the 2.2 billion people that live in 54 countries where English is the common language, where they have a similar legal system, where they like us, and from where, when we're in trouble, they come and stand by our side We will trade with Europe, but re-engage with the Commonwealth. Isn't that the right way for our country to go? All you will hear from the Remain in the EU side is if we're not part of this union, they'll be beastly to us. They won't buy our widgets. All of which makes me ask, if they're that horrible, what are we doing there in the first place? But the fact is they sell us far more than we sell them. The renegotiation of a simple trade deal is the easy thing to do. This, folks, is going to be your once-in-a-lifetime opportunity to break this link. If we lose this referendum, I believe the establishment will close the door on us having this opportunity again for the foreseeable future. And what I want you to do here in Swansea tonight and across the rest of the United Kingdom, in between now and the referendum, whatever that may be, is to resolve that you're prepared to do something about it, to get involved with us, to help us, to join whatever organisation you want, but to make sure that we can win this referendum and hand on to our children and grandchildren the liberties and freedoms that we were born into and wish to maintain. We can win this referendum. We can beat the establishment. Thank you. You didn't, frankly, have the balls to put country before party.